Good evening, everybody. Thanks for joining us. This is a regularly scheduled meeting of the Marquette Township Board. Today is Wednesday, March 19th, 2025. It's 5:30 p.m. and we're going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Andy, roll call, please.
Trustee Kidda.
Here.
Trustee Leighton.
Here.
Trustee Everson.
Here.
Trustee Winslow.
Present.
Treasurer Rickower.
Here.
Clerk Rattari is here, and Supervisor Durant.
Here.
Staff present is Manager Kangas, our attorney Roger Zappa. Our fire chief Dan Shanahan is here. Our planner zoning administrator Jason McCarthy is on Zoom, and our superintendent of public works is on Zoom. And Kit, yeah, I'm not done with my staff yet. Kim Clark is here, our finance director. And committee members here as Jim Johnson from the Planning Commission is here. Denny Ferraro from the Planning Commission is here. Rob Sved from the DDA is here. And Paul Moran is here from the Library Committee.
Great. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Anybody wish to address the board for public comment before we get started? Name and address, please.
Ernest Johnson, 1962 West Fair Avenue. I'd like to reserve time under 8C after the discussion has been completed. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ernie. Okay.
Rob Sved, Chair of Marquette Township DDA. We had a meeting 2 weeks ago before our snowed out meeting for the Township Board. And at that meeting, we discussed the Renovari project. The DDA is supportive of the project, even with the current TIF. We understand that delaying revenue doesn't mean no revenue. We have talked about at board level in the past, we have lots of properties in the township that are seeing no tax revenue and will never see tax revenue because they're federally owned. And we also have some other housing projects that receive payment in lieu of taxes. This is a development that will go on the tax rolls. Their debt will be paid back in 20 years, 24 years, 30 years. That number isn't set in stone yet. One thing to keep in mind is that delayed payment is still payment. It's not going to be a dark store issue. If that property were to go to a retailer, it would probably end up in the dark stores and it would be rolled back permanently. So the DDA did discuss with Joe Ferrari from Renovari, and Antonio was also there. Everybody was receptive, and we did vote to support it in the end. So, thank you.
Thank you, Rob. Anybody else wish to address the board?
Hi. Dennis Ferraro, 238 Eagles Nest Road. Like our friend, Mr. Johnson, I'd like to reserve my comment for 8C after.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Any board member comments on what we've just been told? Okay, thanks. Let's move on then. We need approval of tonight's consent agenda, which consists of approval of regular meeting minutes of March 12th, 2025. We have bills payable in the amount of $312,847.82. We have a new treasurer's report for the board's information from February of this year, and an activity report from the Sheriff's Department for February. We also have financials for February 2025. And I just need approval.
So moved. Support as presented.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. We just need approval of the remainder of the agenda.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Okay, let's start with annual report from Peter White Public Library. Andrea?
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for having me over. Before we get started, I do want to thank the staff of the township for their attention to the library's account and getting those payments all straightened out. It's really lovely on our end from a bookkeeping standpoint, so we really appreciate it, all the effort, and it's much appreciated. All right, Randy, I'm ready.
Okay.
All right, so the mission of the Peter White Public Library is to enrich the community through access to library services and cultural opportunities. Next. This is a little overview of our service area. I'm sure you all are familiar with this, but we are established in the city of Marquette, and then we have township service contracts with 5 surrounding townships, and you all are one of them. Next. In November, we were up for renewal in all of our service, our contracted areas, and we did have a ballot proposal for 5 townships on the November ballot. It was a very busy election season for us, and all of those did pass. So we are always grateful for the support of our townships. Next. So this is our governance and advisory board. We are so lucky to have really invested community members engaged with the library, both on our governance board and our township advisory council. These 2 groups of people work really hard with the library and making decisions that are high level and direct us for the future. And we're working on starting our next strategic plan here in the next couple of months. Next. So our current strategic priorities are service sustainability and expertise. These were adopted in 2023. And our strategic plan, these strategic priorities will continue with our next strategic plan. We'll just develop new goals that fall under those three categories. So the rest of this presentation, I'll be talking about under those 3 categories as the framework for this presentation. Ready? So under service, you can go to the next slide. Books are still very important to what we're doing at Peter White Public Library. That image of the book covers there are the top checkouts from 2024. And that's just, the very tip of the iceberg. You can go on to the next one. Our collection counts. This is a 5-year view of our collection as a whole. These are the physical collections. So some of the numbers you can't see on those small bars, but it gives you an idea of how the collection has changed over time. You'll notice from 2023 to 2024, the green bar shrunk significantly. That is our audio collection. And we'll talk about a little bit about why that is here later in the presentation. But the spoiler alert is people are moving to digital formats by and large for audiobooks. And that is a major, that green bar represents that change pretty significantly. So here's just some program pictures from this last year. We had a pretty busy year. It's fun to look back at these pictures at the end of the year and look at some of the things that we've accomplished. Next one. Circulation stats. So our circulation numbers continue to be steady. We did have a 15% increase in our digital checkout for materials at the library. A physical checkout remained pretty steady, a little bit of a decrease, but when you're talking about 200,000 checkouts, a little bit of change in the negative is not so significant, but a pretty significant increase in digital item checkouts, and that is trending across the country. So again, not surprising. Next one. I'll talk a little bit about some of the digital resources that we do have at the library. The top graphic is all of the resources that we pay for or contribute to provide at the library, and then those bottom 3 are our top used resources. So I'll talk a little bit more in detail about those. Next slide. This is just an overview of those 3 resources and how much they are utilized and what type of format that they offer. So e-audiobook is our most highly used digital format. So those are books that are in audio form and are available digitally. Right below that is the ebook format, and then video, e-magazines, and music. Next one. This graph is showing the uptick in usage for Hoopla and Canopy. Those are two of our newer resources, and the increase has really been exciting to see. These two services have a different usage model than our previous services have. They're called simultaneous use, which means anyone can check them out at any time if they show up in the catalog. They don't have a limited number of checkouts. You don't have to put holds on items. The downside to that is we pay for each and every checkout individually. So as the popularity increases, we are starting to look ahead and see, we're going to have to control that a little bit in some way because we can't put all of our budget into digital resources. So we're weighing right now how much of our materials budget can go to physical items versus digital items, and taking into consideration some of these different funding models that various publishers and vendors use. Next one. So this is just kind of because I like data, fun slide. So these are the top checkouts in Hoopla e-audiobook format. And you'll notice every single Harry Potter book is in that, in that list, as well as several of Sarah J. Maas titles and Rebecca Yarros. So some very popular materials, and we're seeing a lot of those across all of the different services that we offer. But that's part of why Hoopla is so popular, is those Harry Potter books. They check out all the time. Next slide. Programming attendance continues to be very steady, and we're putting an emphasis here in the next upcoming years in quality over quantity. In the past, we've really focused on doing as much as we can, and at this point we've done that, and we're trying to dial back a little bit and make sure that what we're offering is unique to the library. We're not offering things that other organizations are offering, and we're making sure that what we offer is really high quality. Next one. Just some more slides of some events that we had over the course of the year. The top slide with the kids in the community room, that's a little dark and hard to see, that is our team dance from last year. We tried something different this year called a silent disco, and all the kids who attended were given a set of headphones, and they could choose what station they wanted to be on. It was the best dance to work ever because it was quiet. All of the kids had their headphones on, and the colors that you can see, it doesn't really show up great in this picture, but the colors would tell you what station they were on. So there was red, green, or blue. And you'd notice that it'd be kind of a mix of red, green, and blue, and then a song would come on that all the kids got excited about, and they'd all switch, and then you'd see like a sea of blue, and then they'd all be singing the same songs off key rather than 3 different songs off key. But it was a lot of fun. So we're always trying new things to get especially our youth involved and engaged with the library, and that was a really fun event. Next slide. Winter reading just wrapped up. That's a very popular program that we started several years ago to engage kids in the depths of winter. And for the last, I think, 3 years now, we've given away rocks as prizes. And the excitement around kids getting to pick out rocks, it's just heartwarming. For those of us who enjoy being at the beach and picking rocks, it's just fun to see youth who are also excited about that kind of thing. And that program was really successful again this year. Next one. We are in the middle of our NEA Big Read grant programming. It is focused around this book called Can't We Talk About Something More Pleasant? It is a memoir written in graphic novel format. And it's written by Roz Chast, who you may not recognize by name, but she's a cartoonist for The New Yorker. And she is hilarious. And her book is about caring for aging parents. And so a lot of our programming has been around topics related to caring for aging parents and community, and just some of the dynamics that come out of elder care. Next one. Computer use, interestingly, is going up. We were seeing our computer use kind of go down year after year, except for the last couple years. It's been inching back up again. I think there's a lot of theories about why that's happening, but I think some of it is just the complexity of managing your own home computer and dealing with antivirus and all of the repairs and just updates that are a part of managing your own computers. A lot of people who just rather not do it. So they come to the library and use our resources. Next. Our room use is also very exciting. So we started tracking drop-in sessions a couple years ago to try to get a feel for how many people come in, and if a room's open, they're able to use it, most rooms. And so we started tracking that, say voluntary tracking, people just write down, we use the room on this day, there's 5 people in the room. And so we are tracking that over the course of the year. And our rooms are incredibly busy, especially that purple bar there. That's our study rooms. Those are the rooms that we installed during the renovation. And right after coming out of COVID, we weren't sure if people were going to be very excited about these rooms, and they certainly are. They're hard to get at this point, so it's exciting to see them used well. Next one. So it's just an overview of the rooms that we do have available at the library. If you haven't heard this news yet, MACC, the Arts and Culture Department of the city, is moving out from the library. Their lease ends on September 30th of this year. And they are not renewing, so they're moving to the former LSCP building on Front Street. So we will be taking over the space downstairs that was formerly or is currently occupied by MACC. So we'll have 2 additional rooms to manage and some staff offices down there. Next. We've been adding more recorded programming on our website and on YouTube. So a lot of the events, we can't record all of them. Some of them are copyright, have copyright issues, so we can't record them. But we try to record as many as we can so that people who aren't able to get to the program have an opportunity to participate. Next one. Digitization just keeps getting more exciting. I know not everybody thinks it's exciting, but we sure do. So the Cloverland magazine was the first digitization project that we worked with NMU Archives on, and all of our digitized materials are stored at Uplink. They did just launch a new platform for Uplink. It's much easier to use. They're still working on refining it and making it a little bit better, but the searching is much better than the previous version, and we hope that it just continues to get easier to use. Right now, we've got through 1868 through the low 1970, I can't remember, I didn't look today, 1978, I believe, in the Mining Journal. So that's very exciting. All of that is full text, and you can take screenshots from the newspaper, and you can also download our entire portions of the newsletter. We also have been digitizing the Polk directories, and they are waiting for ingestion right now. And so that's a really exciting collection coming on board to Uplink soon. Next one. Talked about this a little bit already, the MACC transition. The gallery that's downstairs will remain a gallery, an art gallery, just like it is. We've been working with MACC for the last several years to operate that gallery, so that will just transition over to us as well. Next one. This summer, we undertook a pretty extensive relocation project for our teen collection. We swapped our teen zone in our AV area, and we had a lot of teen volunteers help us with that. We had to move everything from one area to the other, and unfortunately the shelving is different in both of those collections, so we also had to move all of the shelves. So we were really glad to have a lot of teen helpers in that project. And I think everyone's really happy with the outcome. The teens have a larger space, they have a more enclosed space, and I'm really excited about it from an administrative standpoint because we also have better camera coverage of the space. So I think it's a win for everybody. Next one. And so our next pillar here is sustainability. You can go on to the next slide. This summer, we also replaced our lower Front Street stairs that were crumbling. So we're really glad to have those replaced. The building looks really nice, and those stairs should last. Let's hope for a century. I would love for that to be the case. Next slide. This is just an overview of our 5-year trend of expenses. You'll see that Front Street stairs is a star on that top line, which is why the purple bar is so much larger than in previous years. We did pay for the Front Street stairs out of funds that we held at the library. Next one. This is a pie chart showing our expenditures over the course of the year. And by the way, all of these slides are on our website. So I know it's a little hard to see from this short period of time that you're looking at these slides. So if you'd like to see them and see them in a little bit more detail, they are available on our website under the About tab, Annual Reports and RFPs. And you can download this and see it at your leisure later. Next one. Revenues 5-year trend, again, that bar over to the very far right is showing the revenue side of the Front Street stairs, in addition to all of our other revenues. Next one. And that pie chart is showing last year's revenues as broken out by category. We are really excited to always talk about our endowment fund and the development fund work. That project started in 2015 with $30,000, and by the end of this last fiscal year, we are at $1.6 million. And that's pretty amazing growth. And that's really growth, that's new dollars coming in. It's not money, it's not that $30,000, unfortunately. That would be really outstanding growth. But it's new dollars coming in to support the library. And what this allows us to do is use our operating fund for more of the base expenses of the library and add capacity to what we're able to do with our budget. Next, expertise. So this is our last staff picture. Of course, everything that we do at the library relies heavily on all of those bodies there. That is by and far our greatest asset. Next. Secondary to our staff are our friends. This is an amazing group of volunteers who spend an awful lot of hours at the library. They manage all of our book donations, book sales. We do have a store in the library that they run, and those are all donated materials. And I'm always excited to tell people that, you know, if you want to donate your materials to the library, they might get sold 3 or 4 times, because a lot of people come in and they'll buy something, especially if they're going to go on a trip. They get back from their trip, they return it as a donation, and it just goes right back on the shelf, and the friends sell it again. Next one. We also have several partner organizations that we work with. The Master Gardeners are responsible for the front gardens and how lovely those are every year. We do house the Sister Cities collections for the Sister Cities Partnership, and then we also are the host location for the Queen City Seed Library. And if you're a gardener, now's the time to start thinking. It's growing season around the corner, and the Queen City Seed Library have been in working on stocking this for the next growing season. Next one. We've also been working on expanding some of our programming using partners. So the Repair Cafe, we've worked with Transition Marquette and also Marquette Sustainability to run that event. So that's something where people can bring in items that they need to have minor fixes done, and one of the volunteers will try and show someone how to repair said item. We've also been a host location for the Fresh Coast Film Festival, and we're doing some programming in partnership with Meditate Marquette. Next. We do have a handful of interns and volunteers. These are a combination of both just community members, students from the LSFP program at NMU, as well as high school volunteers. So we're really excited to have those partnerships. So coming up in the next year, the elevator's on our mind. We've had kind of a rocky road with our elevator over the last year, and starting to look ahead and thinking we might have to do something a little more dramatic with our elevator. So that's just something that's always kind of on the back of our mind. The atrium, the fiberglass atrium on the top of the building has been leaking. So that's another building project that we're looking ahead to and thinking we have to probably tackle sooner rather than later. And then really high on our list for this year is staff development. We've had a lot of turnover. I know that we are not unique in that. I know all businesses and organizations are struggling to hire and retain staff. And so we're really taking a look at how we onboard folks, how we can do that a little more efficiently, how we can make sure that everyone feels like they understand the library as a whole. Because much like the township organization, it's complicated, and it's hard for new folks coming in to really feel like they have a good understanding of what we do. So that's pretty high on our priority list for this year as well. Next slide. That's all I have for you. Did I make it in 10 minutes? Pretty close. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Anything for Andrea? Okay, thanks.
You're so welcome.
Appreciate you
Thanks for
coming
having me
out.
in.
Paul, I don't know if you can add anything to that, but you're welcome to say hi or.
I did attend the meeting last night, and I'm pleased to say that the Friends raised $7,000 in the book sale that they just had last weekend, so I thought that was significant. Thank you.
Thanks for coming, too. We appreciate it. Okay, next up is the fire chief.
Good evening, everybody. Short month, short report. I apologize for not getting it in the packet. I was out of town last week. Anyway, I just, nothing really to highlight too much. It was a pretty uneventful month, but I will tell you, we are training with the DNR this month. After last summer, we did have quite a few wildland fires, and we thought it was a good time to bring them out early in the spring this year. Good for a lot of the new people, and a good refresher for some of us people who have been around for a few years. Last month was quite a high number in EMS calls compared to last month, percentage-wise. We also did host the car seat install at our station in February. That's a really good program that we assist with. And I really don't have too much else. Go Heat tonight, games at 6:45. Nobody has any questions. Oh, speaking of the DNR, I will be putting, we just received today, and I'm not sure who this will go, the 5-year annual mutual aid agreement. I'll put it in somebody's box.
I think I have to sign it.
Okay, yeah.
How about equipment? What do you know about any vehicles or?
We do have another candidate that's looking at our old 77 downstate, and he was up yesterday and he took a look at it. We're hoping, but nobody real I'm hoping they're serious. If they took a look at it, took pictures, and gonna take it back to their board and see. So, other than that, the ambulance, we're hoping. I have not received a response. I just emailed them yesterday, though. The ambulance, I'm hoping, where we were told in May, we're hoping. But we will have an ambulance for sale if anybody's looking. Also.
One at a time, Mike.
One at a time, you're right. Well, yeah. I'd like to get the fire truck going. It's a good truck. It really is. You have to want it, I guess, if you don't want it.
Any questions for Dan? Okay,
All right.
thanks, appreciate you.
Sure you don't want to stick around just a little while?
I would like to, but I promised I'd be
Good
there.
luck.
Have a good game. Good night.
Okay, Public Works, hi Lenny.
Hello, everyone. This last month here, like always, we've had some routine grinder pumps repairs and replacements, so that's just kind of an ongoing project that we have. As the old ones come in from the early 90s, we're trying to switch those out for newer pumps. Usually when they come in more than one time here in a few months, we're just throwing them away because all the parts are so wore out and the replacement parts are expensive now. We had a fault at our US 41 lift station last week. It quit running a few times, so they went there and they tried to restart it, reset the computer. When it didn't work, they ended up pulling out the pumps and they found that there was a pair of underwear were actually jammed up in the impellers. So that's kind of happens quite often there. I don't know why, but for some reason people like flushing undergarments and socks and everything else down into the sewer, and those particular pumps, the way they're set up with the VFDs, they get jammed up pretty easy. So we usually do that once every few months. We have to go there and we have to clean all underwear, socks, all kinds of things like that out of the impellers. We got everything cleaned up and we got the pumps running again good. So one of the things we do try to do, we will do some routine just maintenance, checking those out occasionally, especially in the summertime. We'll go through and do kind of like a preventative maintenance, pull everything and look at it. Occasionally we do get that kind of thing at other pumps, but those pumps for some reason get jammed up all the time. And I just think it's because there's a lot of people flushing stuff down the toilet for some reason in that area. This one would kind of happen last month, and I'm sure that a lot of you have heard about it, but we didn't really get a chance to talk about it. We had a pressure sewer main freeze up. The crew kind of had their hair on fire for a little bit. They're just trying to keep up with everything and keep everybody in service. They were able to keep everybody in service by pulling pumps and actually manually pumping the pumps a few times a day for a few days. They were able to locate the section of frozen main, which was quite impressive because it's kind of like they were playing Clue, trying to figure out what was going on and where it was frozen up, and they actually were able to narrow it down to a pretty precise location. They were able to borrow a sewer camera, and they got it up there, and they found the freeze, and they were able to get it thawed. So the big thing was that they were able to maintain the service to about 21 grinder pumps. So that was kind of a lot of work for them, and they stayed pretty busy, but they got it done. On the water side, the Fishbeck study of the Northwood Pump Station has been completed. So we now have a pretty good idea of what needs to be done to move forward with that project if the township decides to. And it depends on how, with the water buy-in, with the water share purchase, how we decide to run our system, whether we want to really expand the surface water up into that district or not. No matter what, Cox has to happen relatively soon, like within the next couple of years. Northwoods, that could be put off if we need it to be, but it'll depend on kind of how we decide to run our system there, whether we need to go forward with that or not. But I'll keep everybody updated on that as we move forward. We've been doing routine water meter reads, repairs, and maintenance. So that's kind of another routine thing that kind of happens is sometimes the batteries fail on these meters as they get a little bit older. We have to replace those and go through. So the crew kind of keeps up on that, and they replace them as needed. And also we've been doing the routine well house reads and sampling. That's just kind of an ongoing thing too with our required samples from Eagle that we have to keep up on. One thing that Chad is actually working on right now is a cross-connection report, which I believe is due by the end of the month. So that's just a report talking about our cross-connections, how many inspections that we did, what he found, that kind of stuff. Just information that goes out to Eagle. Building and grounds. So the ice rink is closed for the season. So with the warm weather in the last couple of weeks here, it kind of really evaporated the ice pretty fast. And as soon as that sun pops out, it eats it away really fast. But we were able to keep it open for a little while, and we did have some people enjoying it, which is really good. One big thing with that is the Zamboni was broken most of the ice season here. It's a 1972, so the parts are old. They don't really work very good, and they're hard to find. So that might be something that we have to revisit here in the future if we decide to still have a Zamboni, have to maybe do something different. Last week with that big snowstorm, our building and ground staff along with other public works employees were able to get all facilities cleaned pretty quickly. So with that big blast, they were able to get out there and get everything cleaned. And then it took them a couple days to get some of the extra, like the sidewalks and some of the parks cleaned, but they were able to do it pretty fast. And just for a note, first Wednesday rubbish drop-off begins in April here for the season. So we'll be posting that again. We'll get that on Facebook and the website that will be coming up. And again, the same rules that we've been kind of operating off the last few years will apply to that. That's all I got.
That's a lot. Thank you for your wastewater staff. That's pretty amazing that they were able to keep it going without any interruptions. Appreciate it.
Yeah, our building stunk for a couple weeks after that, but we got her smelling pretty good after.
Oh, awful. We'll blame the kids. Usually kids are throwing stuff in the toilets.
There we go. Yep.
Any questions for Lenny? Okay, thanks. Appreciate that. Next up is planning. Yep, there's Jason.
Good evening. Things are starting to pick up as it does in the spring with development and other activities. So we've been getting busier in the office here since basically the start of the month. We received a site plan for 420 Brickyard Road. That was the property that Mr. Bob Taylor owned. We had it rezoned last year, if you remember. It was predicated upon a specific type of development that the Planning Commission agreed to rezone that property. So we have received a site plan. It's a golf simulator / fitness and a little bit of retail. As that proposed use is adjacent to residential land use and zoning, there will be a public hearing. So we're looking to schedule that site plan review and the public hearing ahead of the site plan review for the second meeting in April. I saw last night that the Marquette County ORV ordinance was amended, and I know that ours kind of mimics that pretty closely. So we'll review that and have any suggestions that may come of it to comply with and stay in accordance with the counties. Let's see, approved a land division for the Ironer Heritage Rec Authority. That was the property south of the Ironer Heritage Trail that was recently picked up by the authority by way of a acquisition grant from the DNR. So essentially the land division was to section off 20 acres for the family that donated the property. We've assisted the fire department with getting their parcel layer on their new computer so they can zoom around on Google Earth and look at those kinds of things, as well as addressing some addressing situations up in Forestville. So we'll be sending out some new addresses. One of them was duplicated up there, and we'll correct that. As you may have noticed in the news, there's 2 new businesses in the township recently, the Young's Menswear in the Villa Annex building, and then Integrated Wellness, which is moving into the suite just north of the township hall with the, I think it's a financial investment office, so they'll be in the other suite. And Integrated Wellness is a chiropractic office. So we reached out to them to get them their zoning compliance, business license, and signage regulation materials. The city of Marquette has actually partnered with the Michigan Association of Planning. There'll be some trainings coming up in May that we'll notify everybody about, specifically the Planning Commission. Of course, the board is welcome as well. But it's pretty neat to have Michigan Association of Planning up here. The day-long planning summit, if you will be at Northern Michigan University, and we'll give you additional details soon. We received some correspondence from Attorney Zappa to the point where we should start working on our compatible renewable energy ordinance. So I've been drilling into that topic again and have pulled some materials from the Michigan Townships Association. Attorney Zappa is suggesting that those become part of the zoning ordinance and not a standalone ordinance. So I will do my best to concoct a draft and get it over to him for review sometime in the next couple weeks. And let's see. There's also some legislation out there regarding a proposed change to the Land Division Act. I'm sorry, my screen just went blank. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, we can.
Okay. So on your first meeting in April, I'll be presenting this material, which is essentially saying that the first 10 acres of a parent parcel could be divided 10 times. Right now, under the Land Division Act, a 10-acre parent parcel can be divided 4 times. If you read through some of the reasonings for the legislation, is to open up housing a little bit and make it some of these smaller tracts, not the 40s and the larger tracts, but these 10-acre parcels that are parent tracts, be able to subdivide them more without having to go through basically the subdivision law. So I'll sharpen up my knowledge on that and present that to you at your first meeting in April. As well, we'll be discussing the blight ordinance. So the Planning Commission did finally settle on a version of the blight / property maintenance ordinance. And we're looking to present that to the board for your review and hopeful approval at your first meeting in April. Other than that, day-to-day stuff, we're getting inquiries on homes and properties and setbacks and the like. So it's nice that things are picking up, and we're excited for the construction year. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Anything for Jason? Staff is just working like crazy. I did talk to Judy Allen today. I had emailed her about that legislation just to see where it was going to go as far as local control was concerned. And she's not quite worried about that. She said she thinks it's okay, but there was an update today, so you might want to check your legislative update. I forget which part of it went to committee today.
Yeah, it appears to be only if zoning allows for it. So, you'd have to have a zoning district where you would allow, if somebody had 10 acres, there would have to be a minimum lot size of less than 10 acres in order to make that happen.
Okay, no questions? We're good. Thanks, Jason. Appreciate it.
Good evening. Have a good meeting.
You too. Okay, Attorney Zappa.
Well, many of the things I've been working on this month, Jason kind of stole my thunder.
Yeah.
So I'll keep this brief. But we have been working together, answering questions, analyzing the best way to put together a compatible renewable energy ordinance. That's something that the township really should have at this point, and that's with the large wind, large solar, and electric energy storage facilities. And that's not to say we will ever see one, but if you don't have one, then there is zero local control, essentially. And even with compatible renewable energy ordinance, there's about that much local control. It's not a well-drafted statute, in my opinion, but we may as well make the best of it and adopt an ordinance that is compatible in the event that we receive an inquiry from a developer for that type of a facility in the township. The Planning Commission has had some excellent questions and input, and I think we're up to about draft 5 now on the Blight and Property Maintenance Code, and have that in final form. I did hear that yesterday from Jason, so you should be seeing that for consideration. And of course, the Township Board will have the final opportunity to take a look at that and recommend further revisions or changes. But a lot of forethought went into that from the Planning Commission. They didn't just rubber stamp something that either the zoning administrator or that I put forth. They put that together and did spent a lot of time putting that together. I also reviewed an auto agent escrow cloud agreement for tax payments that you'll be looking at shortly. And I had no real significant comments on that. It was a fairly straightforward contractual agreement. I did follow up and attend a hearing on the Zoning Board of Appeals / open meetings litigation that's pending. And keep in mind that I am not involved in that per se. That's being defended by the Michigan Municipal Risk Management Association attorney, but it's been kind of languishing, so I went and attended, and the judge basically granted additional time. He had a lot of questions on the arguments raised, and the judge had granted additional time for briefing. He ordered both parties to submit additional briefs, and the briefing schedule is fairly lengthy. There's 60 days for the defendants, and then an additional 15 days after that for the plaintiff to present their arguments in writing to the court. And I'll keep you advised on that. I did, of course, spend a fair amount of time since last Wednesday's meeting making some suggested revisions to the purchase agreement with Renovari that you'll be taking a look at here further, keeping in mind that these are suggested revisions only from a legal perspective. There may be factual things that the board wishes to also question or revise, but I've corrected a number of minor errors and some things that really needed to be clarified, in my opinion, in that agreement. And we're trying to, at this point, with the snow getting less and less, figure out the use schedule for Lions Field. We've got only one contract party who's more or less indicated that they're not interested in using it in 2025, so we just need to clarify where that's at and either get our batting cage implemented or terminate the agreement. That's a pending issue that Lenny is following up on. But we'd like to get that nailed down before it's time to start practices on the field. And that's pretty much that came to mind. I'm probably overlooking something or another that crossed my desk, but those were some of the bigger ones that came to mind.
Okay, any questions for Roger? Okay, thank you, appreciate that. Community linkage tonight. I have just a couple things to share. I zoomed into the county commissioners meeting last night. Conservation District gave their annual report, as did the rest of the county departments. But I did thank them for their help with putting the grasses and flowers and stuff underneath the solar array and working with us on the corridor. The Conservation District's really stepped up on that. And I didn't, the materials management meeting for the group, the 24 people that are supposed to meet in Escanaba every month, hasn't met. They're supposed to meet tomorrow if they have a quorum, and there's no storm. I don't know, so we'll see if they end up meeting. But my cohort is Jim Nankervis, the Ishpeming Township Supervisor, and he plans on attending since I can't drive yet or get around too well. So we may have a report back on that. I think that was about it. They did talk about the jail. They are still working on trying to figure out, they have a subcommittee of the commission working with staff and some advisors on whether to build a new building. If we did, where would it go? If they can fix the current jail, how would that look? So they hope to come back in the next month or so with some kind of a recommendation to the commission, this committee. That was it for the county board. I think that was about it. The solid waste meeting was scheduled for 4 o'clock today. They canceled that because thinking the storm would hit. And I did question them back because they didn't reschedule the meeting. They said they were going to meet next month. So I asked them if they were going to pay the bills because that's part of their agenda. So they said they would pay them on the 26th. They were going to call a special meeting to buy a $90,000 piece of equipment. So I'll let you know how that goes. I don't know what that's all about. Anything you're hearing from the community? Phone calls? Emails? We didn't have any emails from you, Randy, right? Okay, let's get into the auto agent escrow cloud issue. Are you going to talk about that, or
Yeah.
Michelle? Or?
I don't know if that's Michelle. But, yeah, I can share it. So, Escrow Cloud, it's a free service. It's really taking any properties that pay taxes through escrow, integrates it with our BSNA cloud system, and now payments can be made ACH virtually, so we're not going to be sending out bills, several bills to the same escrow place. So it's streamline our services, streamline how they're getting paid, reduce refunds, and in addition, we would be sending tax statements to any property owner that has their taxes in escrow, so that they would have a copy and not have to call or come into the township. And the whole service is free, so it really just makes things a lot more efficient and saves everybody time and money.
So we sign up with these people to integrate with our software on the taxing side. And then people who have their tax bills and everything in escrow, do we send them a bill then besides?
We just send them the statement,
Okay,
so
they
that
get the
they have,
statement.
they can keep the documentation for their own records.
So then the bank or the lending institution pays the fees, which is why we don't have to pay anything? Or does the resident have to pay?
No, the resident won't pay
Okay.
anything.
Okay.
Right now, what we do for, the Core Logic's one of the larger banks that we send the bills to, and we send, could be sending 100 bills to them. And so what this would do is, now we can just, it integrates with the BSNA, we can send them one report of, here's all the properties that need to be paid, and it gets paid directly from them as always. But again, it's a lot, instead of having all these bills come and then all the data entry, reduces room for error and less refunds in the end
Okay.
that we have
So
to issue.
might have had some duplicates. We would send bills out, or they would pay their escrow, and then they'd pay us by mistake again, so we'd have
Yeah.
to refund it. Okay. I wasn't aware that we were doing all that.
Yeah, I don't know
That's
how
good.
much in refunds we had to do, but there definitely were refunds every tax.
Because people are anxious to pay their taxes. They want to make sure they're done, right? So they just go ahead and pay them. I'm anxious that we will be able to get statements a little bit easier to people who don't see their tax bills, just so they can see, what they're paying.
Right.
Because otherwise it just goes automatically.
Yeah, a lot of them don't know unless they call or stop in.
Sure, and people
You know,
won't
say-
make that effort.
Right, so this will save them the trip and give them more information.
Right.
And if it's a free service, so it's really a win-win for everybody. And after a while, if we don't like it, we can always go back.
Okay, and it looks like the attorney looked at the agreement and he doesn't have any issues with it. And again, since it's free to us, it's kind of a win-win, like you said.
We'll make a motion, Lynn, that we approve the escrow cloud agreement and authorize the treasurer's office to proceed with implementation.
Support.
Motion and support. Any questions? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. All right, please, so I don't forget. Okay, then we have to consider the North Country Disposal COLA request. Is Lenny still on? Yes, good.
There we go. So this here, so section 6.6 of the current agreement actually allows for North Country Disposal to request a COLA. So that's basically what this is. We had anticipated a COLA in the budget, and this is actually well underneath that. So that's basically just the long and the short of it.
And you budgeted for that already, Lenny? It's budgeted?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So the rates won't go up because of it?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, so we had anticipated it. We actually anticipated, just because of the way inflation was going, we anticipated a lot higher than what they asked for.
Okay.
So, yeah, they're only asking for 2.5%. I think we anticipated for actually up to 6%.
And how often does this happen with our agreement? Is it a year?
Yearly, yes.
So just so people know what COLA means?
Cost of living adjustment. So it's based on, I forgot exactly what there's a couple factors that they use, the federal factors for the inflation rate, and that's what it's based off of.
Okay, any other questions? Just need a motion to.
Make a motion to approve the 2.5% solid waste COLA as requested by the North Country Disposal.
Support.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you.
Hey, thank you.
Thanks, Lenny. Okay, next up is to consider the purchase agreement for Renovari and Marquette. Excuse me. The Marquette Township 5 Acres by Jill Ferrari. I believe she's up there. Yeah, great. Thanks for joining us, Jill.
Thanks for having me. Hello, everyone.
Now, since you're not in the room to speak as easily, feel free to yell out my name or something if you've got, or raise your hand or whatever, so we can recognize you.
Okay.
All right, I'll give a little bit of a background for some of the folks who might not know how we got to where we are tonight. We have a purchase agreement in front of us from Renovari for 5 acres. They're interested in buying off of 492 over by Shornwood Park. Our conversation tonight is just about the draft purchase agreement that we were given. Our attorney has worked hot guns to get this done in the last week, so we appreciate that. He got it to me, I think, yesterday or first thing. Yeah, it was yesterday. And he's made some suggestions, as he mentioned briefly ago. And it's the board's choice to approve those changes or amend them or disregard them. Okay, so we're just looking at the purchase agreement. So the chronology, kind of back a little bit, at a planning commission meeting in late 2022, one of the planning commissioners suggested that the township consider contacting Renovari relative to a project they had been working on in Munising. It was his hope that Renovari could possibly do a housing project in the township, so the planning and zoning administrator contacted Renovari and discussions ensued. April 10th of 2023, a couple years ago now, the township board signed an option to purchase from Renovari for the consideration of $1 and other good and valuable consideration, the boilerplate language, for the township's 5 acres off of County Road 492 adjacent to Shornwood Park. The agreement stipulated that the township would keep the property off of the market for a year until April 10th of 24, while Renovari formulated their plans and financing for a 48-unit planned unit development on the site. A few months later, March 19th of 24, the Planning and Zoning Administrator Jason McCarthy received a letter asking for a 6-month extension, taking it to October 10th of 24. And Renovari provided a $5,000 non-refundable deposit per the original agreement. The Township Board approved the request and signed the addendum to the option agreement on April 8th of 2024. September 18th, 2024, I received a letter from Jill requesting an additional 6-month extension on the agreement until April 10th, 2025. The Township Board approved the extension at the October 24th, 24 meeting by motion requiring another non-refundable deposit of $5,000 that is not paid yet. During the ensuing time frame, Renovari presented a preliminary and a final PUD to the Planning Commission that were both ultimately approved by the Commission. January 6, 2025, Jill was present at a board work session at the Township Hall. Brownfield Authority Director Ann Giroux had a slide presentation that explained to the board how a tax increment financing project is structured and how it's implemented. February 21st, 25, Jill emailed me asking to be on the Township Board agenda for the March 5th meeting, and thinking she wanted to update the board, I told her I would put her at the beginning of the agenda under privilege comment. February 25th, a draft purchase agreement was received for the 5-acre purchase. On March 5th, a snowstorm preempted the board meeting that night, and the board rescheduled with a special meeting on March 12th. Jill couldn't attend the March 12th meeting, so she asked that we reschedule the presentation. I have moved the purchase agreement and her presentation to tonight's agenda. I was unclear, as were the clerk and the manager, how the board needed to handle receipt of the purchase agreement. So it was important that the board confer with our attorney. Since that has to happen at an open meeting, I added the purchase agreement to the March 12th agenda under Board Education, not as an action item, but for discussion only with Mr. Zappa on what the board's next steps were. This gave the board the ability to ask questions and get clarification from legal counsel prior to discussion of the agreement at tonight's meeting. While the TIF and purchase of the property are inextricably connected with the project, for this meeting, the discussion was with our attorney on the responsibilities from the board. Jill expressed concerns that she was not informed of the discussion, at the March 12th meeting, but again, my purpose for the discussion was not to talk about the agreement or the project, but to confer with counsel. I wanted the board to be as informed as possible about our next steps so we could respond professionally and succinctly to the Renovari presentation on March 19th, tonight. March 12th, the board motioned to have Attorney Zappa prepare a red line draft of the Renovari purchase agreement we received that includes the township's concerns, and he hoped to have it done for the 19th meeting, which the board does have it at their place tonight. So today, consideration of the purchase agreement is on the agenda as an action item, noting that Jill would address it with the board. So, would you like to talk to us, Jill?
Yeah, sure. And thank you, Attorney Zappa, for getting the red line back. I appreciate the history from Lynn. I think that the updates that I can make since I was there in January are that we have received our final grant from MSHDA. I think I remember telling you that at the time of January, MSHDA was only able to dedicate a portion of the amount that we had requested from them, which is great for the Central Upper Peninsula because it means there's a lot of projects going on. But they could only award about, I think it was $378,000 that they could award at that time. And we just got the call yesterday that we are fully funded for the entire amount that we requested. That is our last piece of funding for this project. All of our PUD activities are complete. We need to think through permitting and what those next processes are in order to break ground. But the call yesterday finished our capital stack. So that's a very positive thing. I have read through the red lines from Attorney Zappa, and I really don't see any strong material changes. I really didn't have an issue with anything that I saw at all. I think the question that's remaining, because we had proposed a closing date of September 1st, which is a little over 5 months away, April, May, June, July, August. And the processes that we still have to get through are the remaining engineering, although we had very good response in the Planning Commission meeting on that subject. We still have to finalize that, including any county-related approvals that need to take place. All of our permitting, which has been slowed recently in some of our other projects, so we want to make sure we give ourselves enough time. And then we have to finalize the brownfield process with both the township, the county, and the state of Michigan. So there's a number of things that still have to be done, but just the fact that we completed the capital stack on a attainable workforce housing project, that was our biggest hurdle. And I'm not sure if there's any other information that I can share that you don't already know. If there are any questions, please let me know.
Anything, board members, on what Jill said? Okay, John, did you have any questions? Since I singled out board members. Okay, so the question tonight is, do you have suggestions on the purchase agreement, comments, observations? The blank line is going to involve the closing date. Right now it's September, does it say the 10th or the 1st? I should have highlighted that. Where is part of that?
It's in there in two places.
Anyway, that's the question I'm sure that, because Jill was asking me today, that today in the email too, is what's our, if everybody's okay with September 1st? There's another date people have in mind? Cognizant of what they have to get accomplished?
So my question is that reasonable amount of time to get it done? If you look at what's too fast, what's too slow, what's reasonable? So I'm guessing September 1st is reasonable.
I think in our minds, that is
That's
the
our realtor
quickest
people.
that we will be able, and I'm sorry, I don't know if I'm allowed to answer.
Yeah, I was, sorry.
No, okay, it's the quickest that we would be able to get those pieces that I mentioned complete. And I failed to mention, but I think it's understood that part of the reason for the delay, we had entered into an agreement together for 1 year. We really had thought that we would win in the first round of MISTA applications, and we ended up having to make 3 separate applications to MISTA for funding. We were declined in the first round. Even though we had site control, they still declined us. And then we applied again, and we only got 378, and then we had to apply again for the gap. The rest of the entitlements were only delayed, I think, by about 6 months. So just wanted to make sure that everybody understood the main reason why this was taking so long is that there's just a lot of projects happening right now, which is good news.
Would you be able to explain how the closing date is hinged upon all this permitting process?
I mean, it's all, we're required to meet certain milestones before we close. We have to receive the water permit, the sewer permit. We're going to have to go through the storm process. I was kind of hoping that Jason would stay on because he would, help probably work through some of this and talk about the different processes. So there's typically 2 permits and a, depending on the local storm process, approval that we'll need to have to get through and done. Our lenders will require that before we close. We'll need to do some work to bid out some of the pieces on the project. We've been working with Oberstar on the horizontal pieces, but there will probably be some bids that need to go out for that over the next few months. And the biggest unknown is the state process on the housing TIF, because this is a newer process for them. And Andrew would and Antonio, I don't know if he's in the audience tonight, but they would know a little bit more potentially about how long that process is taking statewide. But it is a newer process, so we want to push as quickly as we can because we're funded. But again, some of these processes are new to us as well, so I can't guarantee, but the September 1st would be the earliest that we could close.
Would you move forward without the TIF?
No. So there, right now, the capital stack includes debt that is coming from Nicolay Bank and Community Development Finance Institution. Those will get paid back. Those loans will get paid back out of sales proceeds from the homes because these are all being sold. There's equity that's coming in to the deal. And then there is the grant from MISTA, which will not have to be repaid. And then this TIF loan we're going to take out that is going to get repaid out of future TIF capture is a critical part of the project. Right now, that's $1.8 million. So losing that TIF loan would definitely kill the project in its current form.
Okay. Do we need any information? I don't want to put our county folks on the spot because they weren't prepared to speak, but did anybody have any questions for them? Okay.
You can put us on the spot. We don't mind.
Clear as mud, right? So the closing date is the question. John?
Jill says the earliest is September 1st. What happens when we get to September 1st? Are we looking at adding more months after that? I think that's probably where the board is starting to get concerned, is how long this takes to get across the finish line. That would be a question for you, Jill.
Well, I'm hoping that this is a show of good faith, that we lay out with you guys exactly what the milestones are that we need to achieve, and that we all work together to meet those over the next 5 months. If there is a delay from Eagle in the water permitting or something beyond our control, I mean, I think we would hope that we could work together in partnership to get this project off the ground. But if there are things that are outside of our control, we'd hope that you would understand that. But now that we're fully funded, it should be a matter of getting these other items across the finish line, with the exception of the unknowns.
So, before the last extension, the board said April is plenty of time. And that was a quote, by the way. Another quote was, if they can't get there by April, we have nothing to be ashamed of as a board. This is basically asking for another extension to September 1st. So that's my question. It's not up to one or two of us. We've got to decide.
Yeah, well,
September acceptable.
Before this information, I was going to say June 1st, but I understand the headaches of permitting, and some of them should go pretty quick, but then when you get involved with the state, good luck. So it very well could take that long to get all these permits.
John?
Speaking from experience, I think the permitting process can go well, depending on the condition of the documents that are submitted for review. And that's really dependent on the consultant doing the work, right? So if the consultant does a good job up front, it should be pretty easy to get those across the finish line. The stormwater, on the other hand, has the design component, which can take a little bit longer from a review perspective. We have to send that off to our consultant for review. And then there's also some other documents that have to go along with it, as far as easements and maintenance go, according to our ordinance. But getting the approval on the design shouldn't be that terrible if the consultant does a good job up front.
So is it reasonable to ask, because we can counter to some of this stuff for like August 1st? Or does that seem July 15th? Is that too soon? Just asking.
I hate to see a whole summer building season go by, and then it's gonna be, well, now we can't build because we're into snow. And then what is it gonna be?
I support September 1st. I think we've come a really long way. I know that we have looked at updating our master plan. I know one of their requests is to have affordable workforce housing. I think you're looking at 48 units that will bring 48 groups of people, whether they're families or two people, into our community. We are building a VA facility that needs staffing. Wouldn't it be wonderful if we could staff with people that live in our own community? Those 48 units are going to bring a lot of things to our community, and this property has sat vacant for a very long time, and we've gotten no money. None. It's just sat there for 10 years?
Longer than that.
Longer than that. So when we talk about putting some money into something for the future, think about your children and your grandchildren's future. We want our community to be growing. We don't want to keep exporting our greatest resource, and we all know who that is. It's our children. And we've done it for years in this community. So let's put a step forward. We're not the only ones looking at building. Okay, so why not be a model? Move it forward. I say September 1st.
Yeah, I'm looking, guys. What's your pleasure?
For me, the date isn't as big of a concern as the TIF. That's the larger concern, from what I hear in the community and, from my point of view.
Well, right now, we have to look at this first.
Okay, I'll support Linda's motion to accept the September 1st.
Is that a motion, Linda?
Sure, it can be a motion. It was probably emotional.
I'll ask. So the motion would be to accept the purchase agreement as is written with September 1 as a closing date.
Questions? Dan?
If that comes and we're not ready to close, then what?
Well, then you have to make a decision on that date. You can't plan for what's going to happen tomorrow, just like we all can't plan for tomorrow. So I wouldn't be one to sit here and say, if this doesn't happen, I'm going to vote this way. Because I don't know. I don't know.
Okay. Anything else? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Aye.
So 5-2 carried.
Okay, September 1st.
Okay.
Thank you all, and Attorney Zappa, there's I think one more correction I need to make on, I think, some notice issues. So I'll make that correction and send it back to you to finalize, if that's okay.
Before you go, I guess I have just one point of clarification here. And I'd preface that with, nothing that I say should be interpreted or construed as being in favor or against this project, one way or the other. My role is strictly to provide you legal advice. But I need everybody, I guess, I have to emphasize that now what the township has done is given a proposed purchase agreement to Renovari for them to look at and consider, because they need to approve it just like you've approved it. But one of the things that both parties are looking at is we have not yet received a tax incremental financing plan program, so I don't at least know what duration we're looking at, and that may be indeterminable at this point. But this purchase agreement, if it is accepted by all parties, will then bind both of you, both the township board and Renovari, to purchasing that parcel regardless of whether the township accepts or rejects a TIF proposal when it is presented. And again, I emphasize, it may not be possible to present those details yet. I'm not involved in that, and that is a complex issue. But it's critical that everyone understand that if the time for bailing passes, basically, for lack of a more articulate term, then it will be a binding contract on everyone, and you will be agreeing to sell the parcel even if there is no TIF or if there is a TIF. And same thing from Renovari's end, and that is one of the clarifications, because that was kind of murky in the original agreement. I just wanted to lay that out, that is what the agreement intent is, so that everybody goes into this with open eyes. Again, that is not a proposition favor of the plan, opposed to the plan. It's just a legal observation that everyone needs to be clear on.
Perfect, thank you.
One further comment. I don't oppose affordable housing by any means. We all need it. What I do oppose is just dragging it out and dragging out, and I will oppose a 24-year TIF if that comes before me as a voting member. That's all I have to say.
And we had two people that wanted to speak on this
Yep.
item.
Just want to make sure the board was, anybody else have anything? Okay.
So Ernie's
Ernie's
first,
first.
and then Denny's after that.
Ernie Johnson, 1962 West Fair Avenue. Listen to everything, it sounds great, I'm not against the housing or anything else at this point in time, and that. But what I'm concerned with, listening to everything, is that the $1.8 million sitting out there, how they're gonna pay it back. If it's gonna be on TIF, then you got problems. How long is it gonna be? If it's 20 years, that's 5 election terms you're thinking about at that point in time. You talk about taxes. Really, when you collect the taxes on the TIF, then that, the money does not go to the township, period. It won't go until that time frame is up. So we don't collect taxes on the property now, we won't collect taxes on, at that point in time either, until the TIF is done, if that's the direction you go for that period of time. So that's something you have to think about in that. The cost for the housing, looking at what's happening in the United States and on the tariffs and everything else, that, looking at what they're saying, I'd be very cautious at saying that these houses are going to be affordable for what type of people and that. I just don't think it's possible at this point in time, because you're talking September 1st closing date. The building is not going to be ready to go until next year sometime, so your costs are going to go up. Who's going to afford them and that? And who are those type of individuals you're going to have and that? That's my concern, is the TIF over, if you go 20 years, I'm looking at the board. None of you are going to be here in 20 years. So that's my feeling in that. So it's going to be interesting to see how it's going to happen in that. And they're binding the township with no taxes for X number of years under a TIF program and that. That's kind of my thoughts at this point in time. As far as housing in the township, we need that. We need housing in the whole area and that. There's no question about that. It's just about how you're going about and how you can afford it and that. And how our residents can afford it at this point in time. So that's my feeling. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Ernie.
Am I allowed to ask a question?
Yeah, in a second, Ann. Danny, you're up, please.
Dennis Ferraro, 238 Eagles Nest Road. Well, I'm glad that the purchase agreement was passed, but I understand the concerns that people have about the TIF. And of course, I just know what Ms. Giroux has explained and what Jill has explained. Some of the questions have been informative. But I went on the internet today just to try to get some idea about what impact the TIF has on a community and what, in terms of achieving some kind of good community result. In one quote that I saw from a government consulting company about TIFs stuck out, and I'll just read it here. It says, public engagement and input is vital for a government to ensure that TIF projects align with community needs and priorities. So I guess for me, as a township resident, and also, I'm not speaking here as a member of the Planning Commission, but I am a member of the Planning Commission, so that informs my concerns. The question is, what are Marquette Township's residents' needs and priorities? Well, we, in our developing the master plan ongoing, we had a survey, a community survey, and 81.7% of township residents that were surveyed said that encouraging development of more affordable housing units here in our township is an important goal. 58.4% said it very important, and 23.3% said somewhat important. Now, the Township Planning Commission, at least we know, because they rigorously examined Renovari's site plans, their propositions, and so on and so forth. I think we had at least 3 meetings with them. We agree that this project should go forward. We think that this is an important thing for our township, an important thing for our people here. The Downtown Development Authority, Mr. Zved, is gone, but I was glad to hear him speak in favor of this today, and I saw him on TV, and he did a nice job on TV speaking in favor of this project. And tonight he qualified that by saying even with the 20-year or 20-plus year TIF, it's an important thing for our township. Today I happened to receive from our planning administrator the county climate action plan, which contains a climate action resolution and other documents. And some of the things that they said there are important. This plan strongly emphasized the need for affordable housing. I'll just quote from some of the things they said here. Marquette County is a prime location for climate migrants looking to relocate due to the impacts of climate change on their current home regions, drawing people from Phoenix, Chicago, Detroit, Grand Rapids areas, etc. From 2020 to 2023, according to the county statistics, while Michigan had a 0.4% decline in population, Marquette County has had a 1.5 population increase. And our planning administrator, Jason, at several meetings confirmed that our township is leading in the growth of this phenomenon. People are coming here. So the county in its report goes on to state that affordable and attainable housing are crucial to prepare for this expected continued population increase. Okay, so what's the payback for that township? I know everybody here does their best and has done a wonderful job in providing government for this township. But what's the payback? Well, first of all, even if there's a 20-year TIF, you're going to get payback on it, and you're going to pay back more than you're investing. This will stimulate economic growth. It's going to provide needed workforces for existing township businesses in order for those businesses to survive and thrive and expand. And it's going to encourage new businesses to come to our township and to open up businesses and provide economic growth. 3, and I echo Trustee Winslow's comments, that putting 48 new families in this township means that money will be spent by these families in our township. This will bring additional revenue in, okay? So those are some of the things that, and I admit my ignorance of financial governments. This is what you guys do best. But it just seems to me, from my point of view, being here in this township and seeing what you guys have done and participating in the planning commission, that this is an essential project that we should go forward with. And I think the main thing is, and I think Linda alluded to this, it's going to strengthen the social fabric of our community. Having new families come in, we don't want to be just a township where people, don't live and just come to spend money from other places. This is going to strengthen the social fabric of our township to have this. This is an investment for the future, and I think it's really a good thing. And we will be a model. This will be the largest project in our county to go forward, and it's the township being the leaders and you all being leaders in this endeavor. So I hope it goes further. I hope we can get this approved, and I hope that whatever TIF number is agreed upon I hope it's going to be adequate, and anyway, thank you.
Thanks, Danny.
Ann wanted to ask some questions.
Yeah, absolutely, Ann, come on up.
I wasn't going to talk about TIF, but everybody's talking about TIF.
That's okay.
So, like Attorney Zappa, I as the Brownfield Director, I'm not necessarily like in support of a particular project, not in support of a particular project or a particular developer or another developer. But just in general, the reason the state of Michigan added housing as a brownfield eligible item for using tax increment financing is to give you the ability to incentivize housing in your community. So I know I've heard your manager, John Kangas, say this, and really that is the true message I guess I want to give you is if you want to see attainably priced housing, which through this process they would have to sell these at 120% area median income or less. Nobody's going to build that. I mean, I'm just going to be very honest. There is no profit in that for housing developers today, right? So this tool is really there for a local unit of government to incentivize that to see this kind of housing. When you think about what you're giving up and what period of time you may be giving that up for, I would encourage you to think I think back to my college days when they talk about opportunity cost, right? Like, you're not generating tax revenue on this parcel now. If this development doesn't go forward, what will be there? Will it be anything? Will it be 2 houses? Will it be 3? I mean, it's just some of those things to think about. I tend to not think of brownfield as giving up that tax revenue for 10 years, 20 years, whatever it may be. It's really, that development is not going to happen if you don't give the incentive, if that makes sense, right? So you're not giving it up, you're allowing for that development to occur. So I did want to make those couple of comments. I did have a question too, just so I'm understanding what Attorney Zappa said. So what I wonder is, you know, where we're at right now, we have a draft brownfield plan. The Brownfield Authority has not taken action on it yet. The draft plan is a 24-year plan. I'm not sure I see that changing. Jill can answer that question. As of right now, it's a 24-year plan. And the feedback that I've heard from this board is that 24 years is too long. So my question is, if I come back next month with a 24-year plan and the township decides they don't agree with that and it dies, are they bound by the purchase agreement?
Yes, if both parties have accepted and signed the purchase agreement at that point.
So I only throw that out there as something to think about.
And I want to clarify, because they're in that new section that Attorney Zappa wrote, there's language that says financing satisfactory to the purchaser. So I think what we would have to make sure is that us being able to finance this in a way that's satisfactory to us has to be a condition precedent. So let's say the TIF doesn't pass, or it's less than we want for the project. If we scramble to try to find another way of financing and can't finance the deal, we have to be able to terminate the purchase agreement.
Ball's in your court for, this was Marquette Township's proposal to you, basically. So I guess you can come back to us with some alternate language for them to consider.
Well, and just want to have a discussion about that, because I fully understand everyone not wanting to make a commitment tonight for a TIF plan or any length of TIF plan. I get that. But at the same time, the way this reads, it kind of depends on how you interpret that one section on purchaser financing. You could interpret this to say that if we don't close, regardless of whether we get the financing we need, we're in default because we're past the inspection period. And we need to modify that language a little bit and make sure that we need to be able to finance this project. This is not a market rate project. This is not a deal where we can just put a bunch of equity in and get paid back out of the sales. We are developing these for 100,000 more than we're selling them for. So I will send some language back, but that's definitely something, if we can't finance this deal because we're not getting TIF or whatever the reason, we can't move forward with the purchase agreement.
Well, you could, because it's been for sale for 2 years at this point, and the market has gone up. I'm not arguing, I'm just
That was
playing.
my concern, and not that it's any of my business, but that was my concern for the township is if I come back in a month and the township says no deal on the brownfield plan, they could still buy it for $500,000 and flip it and sell it for $1 million.
Absolutely.
And that was just my concern is, are you okay with that?
Well,
That would be depending on if that's
we
what was
signed
brought
it.
to us. That's why I specified, this is what we're looking at tonight.
Right.
We have to keep the blinders on and answer this question. Or had to, we did already.
So at the risk of being really redundant, this is not in support or opposition to TIF financing or the program. I was asked to put together some proposed revisions to the purchase agreement that more or less aligned with what was discussed at last week's board meeting that protects the township. And that's what I was hearing, maybe I heard it wrong, but that's what I was hearing, is that the township wants to sell this parcel at this point. Now, what I will hasten to add is if we receive counter proposals on this, I will do everything within my power to expedite review of that and act promptly on it, and naturally that's through this board's authority, nothing comes through me directly, but this is the type of thing that can be looked at and reviewed very quickly. But this is a proposal that's now been presented, which you've approved, so now it's time for Renovari to look at that and evaluate whether it's acceptable in its current version or whether they wish to propose something else, in which case, if it is something else, it's got to come back to you for approval again before it gets executed. That's the legal procedure. But that is, as Ms. Drew pointed out, that's one of the things we talked about briefly, very briefly, a sentence or two with last week's meeting, is that the market has gone up. The property's been on hold for 2 years, almost exactly 2 years in a couple of weeks. So, do you want to hold it, or do you want them to be able to potentially sell it? That's what's out there right now. This would be, if everybody accepts it, it will then be sold, and you will sign a deed, and you're done with that parcel.
That's the key, it's been on hold. We haven't been able to do anything with it for 2 years. And people have said tonight that we're not getting any tax on it. No, we're not, because it's been on hold. We can't, our hands are tied, we couldn't do anything. We gave an agreement. I'm tired of waiting any longer.
I'm not trying to be argumentative in one direction or the other. I just want everyone to understand where we are on it, and I will do my best to try to interpret what I'm hearing and reduce it into a legally enforceable written document.
And I've got a question for you, again, without putting you on the spot. If you don't know, just say I don't know. Okay. We started with 25 years in the original discussion, and it ended up being 25 to 30 because the brownfield had to collect its portion of, you guys have put a lot of time and effort into this already. So you have expenses, you will have expenses. And originally that was 25 years for the TIF and 5 for you. So it was a 30-year project. That's as far as Mr. would go. That's where we started. Okay. I think it was the last meeting or a couple meetings ago when Jill did attend, she said it was 24. So where does that leave Brownfield Authority?
So I just looked at that today, and Jill can correct me if I'm wrong, but the first draft had between admin and the local Brownfield revolving fund, 1.6 million roughly coming to the Brownfield Authority over that 30-year period. That has been reduced to 450,000. So that's the 24 years, but the only change from the 30 to the 24 was at the Brownfield Authority's expense. The developer reimbursement is still the same.
Okay.
I would point out that the developer is not reimbursed in full for their eligible expenses over this period of time. There's 645,000 roughly that they are not reimbursed in full. And again, Jill can jump in and correct me there if I'm off on that. The other thing I was gonna point out, because I did watch your meeting last week, and there was some discussion about the length of the other TIF plans that this board has approved. So I did want to point that out, what those were. So Barrel and Beam was the first Brownfield plan that you approved, and North Crest was the second. Both of those plans, as written, were actually 30-year plans. If you look at the language in the plan, it says that it's 30 years, which is statute, and this is how a lot of Brownfield plans are written. It's 30 years or when the developer is reimbursed in full. So when we bring that to you, we give you an estimate of when we think that developer is going to be reimbursed in full, right? But under statute, if there's some delay for some reason, you can go up to that full 30-year period if that's the way the plan is written, which those were. With Barrel and Beam, the estimate was 13 years. We're on track to be about 13 to 14 right now, so that one's kind of right on with what we thought. North Crest was 23, that was the estimate. Because there has been no development on that back parcel, they're not gonna be in 23 years. I think that's gonna be significantly longer unless something happens where we see something built there soon, and that could make up that difference. But I did wanna just share that because I know that came up last week.
That's the Mr. Tire property or whatever it's
Yes,
called,
the
right?
discount tire.
Discount
Mhm.
tire.
Yeah, so they split that into two. The discount tire is generating a tax base right now that's reimbursing the developer, but the back parcel was never developed. They sold it, but yeah, nothing's happened yet. So that TIF has been delayed a little bit.
So you gave up $600,000 or $700,000, and they're not gonna be reimbursed somewhere around that too? And why would this be a good idea, from your perspective?
From our perspective, we want to support housing TIF in this county because we want to see attainable housing built. And so my spiel to my Brownfield Authority when we reviewed the draft was that I think they should consider that to try to get our first housing TIF plan through. Because whoever made the comment, this will be, well, I shouldn't say the first plan, Marquette City has done one. It's a big deal. It's a big deal to have a township or a city support housing in this way. It's pretty powerful. So yeah, we are supportive, be it the Brownfield Authority or the Land Bank Authority, using the tools to try to incentivize housing.
Okay. Dan?
One last thing, I've heard many times, affordable housing. What is the estimate, average cost of one of these units going to sell for?
The
Jill can
duplex
tell you.
and the town units will sell for 240,000 that are 2 bedrooms. The 3-bedroom cottages will be 350,000.
And this is affordable.
This is based on a 120% area median income targeting, with 3 of the units being lower income targeted through the MISHTA program between 60 and 80% AMI. The sales prices will be the same, but there will be significant down payment assistance.
So I like to correct people when they use the word affordable. Because we don't use the word affordable for this missing middle workforce housing. We use the word attainable. There's, in my mind, kind of a big difference. So you hear people talk about AMI, that's area median income, and I think I might have had some slides on that, but 80% or less is what is usually called affordable. Habitat for Humanity families fall in that. CDBG type programs fall in that 80% or less. 80 to 120 is what's usually called attainable. And for this project, they would have to be under that 120. To give you an idea, and Antonio can jump up and correct me because he knows these numbers better than me. One person family at 120% AMI, I think, is about $65,000 a year annual salary. Family of four is about 95 to 100,000. That's what's considered 120% AMI wage.
I don't know about you, but I don't know a lot of people that make that kind of money. Huh?
Yeah.
No, that's just, to me, that's
Meaning
not
that's high or low?
That's not affordable.
Oh.
That's, I don't know that many people that make $120,000 a year.
It wouldn't be just
Well,
one
it's 100
person.
95 to 100
Yeah.
was what I said for 120% AMI. I'll give you a personal example. I got a kid who's 24 and a girlfriend, and combined, she's a manager at a restaurant and he's a postal worker, and they are probably in that 100 to 120% AMI range.
Mm-hmm. You're absolutely right. Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Antonio's better at that stuff than me, though, because he's
Market
in it every day.
Under that.
Yeah.
Way under.
Way under that, 40%. So that's what I'm saying. We talk about affordable housing or obtainable housing. I don't see it. I'm sorry. I want housing, definitely. I can see little kids running around in the backyards there swinging on their swings. We need it, definitely. I'm not opposed to that whatsoever. But I just don't see this.
So maybe you can share with him how they get those numbers for does Antonio, can you share that? Because I don't think we understand where they come from.
I'm also happy to come back and do my annual report and also talk deeply about these numbers, and I can present a nice graph about what it all means. We don't decide these numbers. These numbers are decided by a couple of resources. For example, in Marquette County, the area median income is roughly $63,000 a year. And I know you may not know folks, or we may not know folks that make that money today, but that's a combined household income. So we should be thinking about that too. Somebody makes 20, somebody makes 40, you have the math, it makes 60,000, right?
Correct.
At 63, you're at 100% of the area median income. These homes in this potential project are targeting 120% of that number or less. So that's the range.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to really get into how we're determining that, but those are also set by the state. The State Housing Authority has come up with these graphs by county, and they're adjusted. So you go to Mason County, you go to Ottawa, you go to anywhere in the state, they kind of differ a little bit. So these are computations that are set. We can sit here and argue for hours about who's making what, but generally speaking, the middle sector, that workforce housing, attainable housing, we're talking about, people that Ann mentioned, folks that we're helping out at the land bank. They're not necessarily, making over $100,000 a year. So I don't know if that helps a little bit to clarify some of these ranges, but
Well, I understand where you're getting your numbers and how the combined income works, but maybe I hang around with the wrong people. I don't know.
And also we talked about COLA earlier a little bit, but these are some real significant issues that we're all facing. I mean, I don't need to get on a tangent, but it's not just housing, it's wages, it's grocery bills, it's everything that's going up. So it makes it sound a little redundant too, but the cost to build a home now, I mean, we're struggling to keep it under $250,000 from the land bank with a $100,000 subsidy to be able to sell it for under $200,000. And this last one, thankfully, is going to go for $185,000 in Ishpeming, 3-bed, 2-bath, corner lot. We're lucky that we can find the buyer that can be able to afford that. It doesn't always work out that way. But these are some of the things that we have to consider when we put these projects. Like they're judged by the entire body of work, not just a specific target. So there are not many developers in Marquette County right now that are doing any of this work. I'm pretty confident in that. Habitat is the only one that I can say for sure is doing 60 to 80% AMI. They do 1 or 2 houses a year. We're trying to keep up and do a little more, between 80 and 120, but beyond that, it's very hard. So I'll just stop there.
Well, I had a neighbor that had a modest, I won't even say modest, it was an average 1,500 square foot, 3-bedroom home with a finished basement that sold for $385,000. You know, I don't know.
Okay, I think we beat the horse enough. Thanks, Danny.
Can I just clarify something with Jill? 40 of these units are going to be under $250,000.
Correct.
Right. So the ones that are 350 are going to be the exception. 40 of them are going to be under $250,000. That's a
Right. The other 8 are 3-bedroom homes, so they're slightly larger. Those will be considered market rate. And the other thing I was going to mention is this program is designed to support housing attainability or workforce housing, but we are not seeking any of the financial benefits for the difference in the housing cost. That's something that can be wrapped into the brownfield plan. What we're really subsidizing is our site work. So we have analyzed this site environmentally, geotechnically, and our special foundations that we need for these houses is close to $670,000. The geotechnical report that came back shows the layers of the soils on this site to be very challenging for new development. And so we have $2.6 million in site work. On a per square foot basis, that's higher than you would see on other greenfields, way higher than other greenfield sites you've seen. So not only are we trying to deliver more attainable housing units at attainable sales prices, but we do have significant site issues here that we're trying to deal with as well. From both the geotechnical issues vertically and also the topography make for very difficult site work. So I just wanted you to know that the ask for TIF when we get to that point isn't just to bring down the sales prices, it's also to deal with the site conditions.
Okay. Anything else? Okay. Thanks, Jill. We appreciate you zooming in, giving us that information and participating.
Thank you. Have a good night.
You too. Okay. Highland grant funding. Speaking of grants, more people asking for grant help. Highline, I've heard their presentation twice now. They're doing internet. Thanks, Roger.
Oh, sure.
Thank you
off
for
to my
staying
7
too.
o'clock now.
I realize that you're running late. Anyway, I've heard their presentation a couple times. They've gotten federal funding and grants to be able to do upgrades to internet, to whatever, the broadband is the better term. And I have asked them to come and speak to us about this, but they did ask if we would consider a letter of support. I told them I would put it in the packet. I think it's a little preliminary because we don't necessarily know a lot about their project. I know a little of what I've read, but I don't know what the board knows of this. So while this is in here as a request, I'm really not ready to ask you to do this unless you are really strong about filling it in and putting our name on it. Because we don't know exactly what they're doing, what they're asking, how they're funded. You can go on the county website for their county commission's website and hear their presentation. And he's got graphs and dollars and everything. So I'm putting this on just for your, what do you think? Is this something you want to support right now, or do you want to wait till you hear from them? Or?
I think we should wait until we hear from them, have a little bit more information. I'm not personally ready to support.
Okay. That sound okay to you guys?
Yeah. Do you want a motion for that, or do you want to just move
I
it?
can just tell them.
It's just information.
Yeah,
Just
you
move
just
it.
tell them that thanks for the letter, and once you've set up a time, because I've asked them to come,
Right.
then we can talk about it once we have a little more information.
They can even zoom in if they can't come in person.
Yeah. Okay, I'll tell them that, thank you. Okay, do we have any recreation updates? Did they meet yesterday?
No,
Didn't.
we did not meet.
Okay, I know it's kind of early in the season. Any public comment? Anybody wish to share some thoughts? Okay, any announcements from the board?
So I'll announce Community Day, which we annually hold the first Saturday in August, will be August 2nd this year. So plan for where you'd like to volunteer and who wants to scoop ice cream. Dan's not looking at me.
Do you have a time established yet?
We'll probably run at the same time we did last year. I think maybe a little later. So like I think it was like from 2 to 5, so we might go 2 to 6. So that gives people a little bit more time.
That's just the ice cream though.
That's just the ice cream,
Yeah,
and the
okay.
music's in the evening.
Okay. Sounds good.
Yeah, so August 2nd.
Okay. Manager's report? Anything to share?
Only one thing, and it goes back to a little bit about what Lenny talked about in his report, and that is the Northwoods booster station. If we choose to go ahead with upgrades to that booster station, the new pumps and headers will take up space that's currently being used to park Eno. If you don't know what Eno is, it's the antique fire truck. Meaning, if we do those upgrades, we need a new place to park Eno. We need a storage building. So planting that seed.
Or they need to sell their fire truck.
Or they need to sell their fire truck, I guess. But we've already been talking about this storage space needs. I think it's over on the priority goals from last year. And I would assume that would continue until we actually resolve it. You might want to start thinking about whether or not that $500,000 sale price on that 5-acre parcel shouldn't be reallocated to this new facility we need as opposed to paying down debt that we just refinanced. Just think about it. Not saying you have to do it, it's just a thought.
Good options. That's what we like.
And that's really about it, other than the Personnel Committee is going to be meeting tomorrow, and hopefully we will have a few items for you to take action on at the first meeting in April. It's regarding some staffing, potential reassignment of some of the HR duties to somebody far more qualified than the person that currently has them.
Any questions for the manager? Okay. Would you mind reviewing our motions, please?
All right, the motions for tonight was to approve the consent agenda as presented. That was approved. The second motion was to approve the regular agenda as presented. That was approved. Third motion was to approve the auto agent escrow crowd agreement, and that's approved for the treasurer's office to implement. The fourth motion was to approve the North Country Disposal COLA request. That was approved. And the fifth motion was to approve the Renovari purchase agreement that was edited by Marquette Township. So we approved that, our version. It's back to Renovari for their comments. So all we did is approve ours as written with the date of September 1 as a closing date. And now it's sent to them for review.
Okay, thanks.
That was approved 5-2.
Next, April 2nd meeting, we will have North Country, not North Country Trails. NTN will be here and the Heritage Trail to give their reports. And I will hopefully have 3 committee recommendations for you. And then we'll just have 1 open seat. So we'll talk about that next time. Any comments from the board?
Yeah, I've got a comment. So just a few things that came to light tonight in tonight's meeting. I don't think Renovare will purchase the property and flip it because they can't get all of their financing actually in hand until they have their permitting process approved. That's why I asked her, what's the holdup in purchasing the land? So the flip won't happen. The elephant in the room tonight was the TIF. If we don't go for the 4-year TIF, then it's all out the window anyway. And one other thing I learned tonight was that the township approached them about the housing. So that being said, I would be willing to go for a 5-year TIF because we approached them, but I don't see any more further than that. Just my thoughts.
Staff approached them.
And
not
as
the
far
township
as
board.
the cost of housing, it's insane right now. I mean, it's $350 a square foot and up. You know, so I mean, these houses, there'll be people jumping at them if they can buy them for what they're gonna sell them for. They will be jumping at them left and right.
And remember, the other part of the discussion that we have to decide is if we get into the TIF conversation, the original recommendation is 5 years that they have to keep the property by MISHDA laws or rules or whatever, regulations, before they can flip it. So we have some flexibility on negotiating that 5 years. We want those people who have purchased it at a lower price be able to flip it at 2 or 3 times what they paid for it in 5 years, or 10 years, or 20, or 5, 8,
I'll
or
buy
whatever.
one.
So that's another thing that we can talk about when that conversation happens.
But that'll pay your TIF off sooner. If they flip them at those kinds of rates, it'll pay it off much sooner. So, I mean, there's lots to consider, really.
And the other thing is that they had, when they first came to us, they had many, many other creative ways of financing the project. And so I think there are some other options yet that can be investigated into doing it.
Yeah, thanks for that, Carl. Anything else?
Well, and I'll make a comment with Carl. You know, tonight we just talked about the purchase agreement. I have not seen a TIF plan in front of me as of yet. And I can tell you, this is not the board's opinion, my opinion. I do not support a 24-year TIF. I've supported 10 and 15s, but not 24, because my thing is if we allow this developer to do it, how many more are gonna do it? And we're gonna end up with no taxes for the next how many years, and they're utilizing general fund services that we rely on the taxes for. So if we want a bunch of housing in the township that doesn't pay taxes, you know, I can't stop that, but,
What good is it?
well, we've been hit so, you know, really, if you think of it, Marquette Township gets a small percentage of those taxes, but it's the grand picture. The county and schools would hurt huge amounts. And we've been hit by the dark stores very hard, and we haven't been hit by housing in dark stores yet.
Just apartments.
That's housing.
It's been hit, it's there.
Yeah, so we might be taking further hits if we got a, you know, a nice big development down here, just down the road for apartments. If they go for a dark stores and gets their taxes reduced by half, we just eat it. Not to say anything about the long year development, but what's saying that they can't apply for a TIF for the next 30 years?
I don't know that, what the long year development, a planned unit development can do that.
Well,
I think a
it's,
single owner apartment block complex can do it.
that might be a bad example because they're already through, but any future development by developers could say, well, we want to use this, and I'm not throwing the tool under the bus because the tool is a good tool.
Correct.
And, you know, unfortunately, we don't have a huge tax base residential here, and we're trying to protect what we have because the businesses are chopping it as we speak. And our, you know, the only tax base left might be residential for us eventually.
But yet you wanted to sell the property tonight, right?
Mhm.
Okay.
And it was made evidently clear that the property sale has nothing to do with the TIF,
Right,
so.
yeah. We don't know what would have been out there for the last 2 years of people interested in building, buying,
Well,
developing.
You had said you had 2 people approach you at one time,
I did.
and,
I told them they had to wait.
and we could have sold it back then to them and been possibly collecting taxes on it now.
It'd also be a dark store now.
Mhm. Mhm.
Why would it be a dark store?
I don't,
I don't want to get into a back and forth.
But that's my comments, Lynn. That's, I support the housing, but I just don't like a long TIF situation, because
200%.
I wanted to seem dated. I might be the youngest person here, but by the time this TIF is over, I'm probably gonna be dead, so. And that's kind of unacceptable for me to wait 24 years.
What will future boards think of us?
Well, and I don't want to bind them either, so.
Well, we did one step tonight, so that's what we were required to do. We had to respond to the purchase agreement, and we did, so now we'll wait for the next step.
And actually,
Comes back with.
the ball's in their court now, because now they know, and then if the language isn't acceptable from them coming back, we can say no. Because we're negotiating in good faith, which we have to do, so. It's first step in negotiations, I guess.
Yep. Any other comments?
I'm gonna do it.
I have one further comment. I'd like to make a motion that we adjourn.
Who's gonna support? Who's supporting
there.
it? John?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned at 7:36.